Ladies and gentlemen, when we flip a light switch in this country, when we power up a computer or swipe a credit card, we take for granted that the electricity that we're going to need to do that function is going to be there. But imagine for a moment if our shops or our schools or our hospitals and our homes had absolutely no electricity. What would happen if you flipped that switch and nothing happened? Even the most industrious manufacturer would be very hard-pressed to stay in business. The most dedicated surgeon would be powerless in a hospital to save lives. And unfortunately, this is the reality throughout most of sub-Saharan Africa. 70% of Africans lack access to dependable electricity. The Electrify Africa Act is a response to this massive power shortage. It offers a market-based strategic framework to bring affordable energy that is reliable to the 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa who currently have none. Why do we care? We care because jobs are at stake, also human lives are at stake. Now, over all of Africa, the population is now about 1 billion. We have 1 billion consumers. The African continent has great economic potential. Last year, a bipartisan committee of staff of a delegation here traveled to 3 countries, to Ghana, to Liberia, and Nigeria, to see how these countries could make better use of the African Growth and Opportunity Act. I can tell you I and Greg Meeks have traveled in the past to these countries to see what could be done to create more economic growth. And we passed landmark legislation a decade ago in order to try to increase trade, increase opportunity, remove the barriers for exports from these countries to the U.S. But in all 3 of these countries, the production of goods for export was rendered nearly impossible by a lack of affordable energy. Even where other countries and in the region were doing well and where conditions were ripe for manufacturing, the problem is that the cost of running a plant on a diesel generator is simply prohibitive. Not to mention the absence of electronic devices and Internet access, now so critical to businesses and now very critical to education. This lack of electricity even has a direct impact on our nation's spending. For example, the U.S. Embassy in Liberia spends, how much do you think they spend on their diesel generator there? $10,000 a day. That is why it is so impractical to think that small businesses are going to be set up to run and then have to rely on diesel generators. There is no usable grid in Liberia right now. When I chaired the Africa Subcommittee, I saw firsthand how a lack of electricity stifles development. Women spend long days searching for wood or searching for charcoal to provide heat for their families. Children study with light from highly flammable kerosene lamps, and health risks are very high as a result. Cold storage of vaccines is almost impossible in this kind of a situation. Families resort to using inefficient and highly polluting sources of fuel, and you can imagine what happens when the toxic fumes from those fuels waft through their homes. As a matter of fact, that causes more deaths in the region than HIV, AIDS, and malaria combined. Many of this committee have spent years working to help transition African countries away from assistance into economic growth. The Electrify Africa Act mandates a clear and comprehensive U.S. policy so that the private sector can proceed with the certainty it needs to generate electricity in Africa, at no cost, by the way, to the U.S. taxpayer. We need to be engaged. Where the United States has left a void for economic investment in Africa, China, of course, steps in. China has directed $2 billion towards energy projects on the continent. If the United States wishes to tap into this potential consumer base, we must act now. It's another point I would make for the members. And I want to thank Ranking Member Eliot Engel and Africa Subcommittee Chair Chris Smith and Ranking Member Karen Bass in particular for helping craft this bill, which comes at a crucial moment in time. And I want to also recognize the wide range of support for the bill from the 35 African ambassadors who have sent letters of support to us here on Capitol Hill, to the private sector groups like Chamber of Commerce and the Corporate Council of Africa, and advocacy groups like the One Campaign. And I'd just like to ask those members of the One Campaign who are with us if they would just stand for a moment to be recognized as well. Thank you very much for your engagement on this issue and the assistance in trying to electrify Africa. And at the end of the day, I know the committee wants to see communities in sub-Saharan Africa flourish. This bill sets out a comprehensive, sustainable, market-based plan to bring hundreds of millions of Africans into the global economy.